All right, just a quick treatment of this stamp sketch stamped on a piece of the very inexpensive wood grain placemat paper. When I say placemats, it's literally placemats, something that you eat on and just toss out in the trash. But this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of a 11 by 17, and we've stamped out our composition on here. And I just wanted to add on a little bit more drama. I just stamped the moonlight right here, and I'm going to add a moon in here. I think we can just, normally I just finish off these pieces just as is, but I thought I would take a look and see what some additional lighting would look like in here. And these rungs, these posts from the fence, I thought could add some really dramatic lighting in here and kind of change the spirit of the piece by adding those kind of elongated shadows. And anytime you do that type of thing, some sort of really definitive light source and shadows, especially if it's kind of in a dramatic setting, with you know, a, a light source on the horizon, it creates these more elongated shadows, and that really becomes an integral, if not dominant, kind of theme of the scene, even more than the objects themselves. Hello, Bugs and Berit. Good to see you. Happy Easter to everyone. I wanted to take a look and see what these pieces would look like, or I don't know, some of the stamp sketches from the other night. So I wanted to just take a moment here to finish off a couple of these and test out some of the theories kind of we talked about. So when I say theories, I'm not really quite sure of how these pieces are going to come out, with any of the ideas that I kind of, I don't know, come up during the course of the creation of these compositions, but we shall see here. Okay, so hello, Candy. Yeah, Candy, I wanted to test out the fences with the desert pieces. I thought they would look really good with them. So uh, I do like them. All right, so I'm not going to make the this moon in here too bright. And I was thinking about putting this on the horizon. I thought that would be a little bit more dramatic. So we have our little slope right here, created with the sedge filler right in here, okay? But I've already stamped out my cacti and ocotillo here, so I thought I'd go a little bit higher, like right about right here. It's kind of like the rule of thirds type of thing. If you kind of divide this up into thirds like this, that's that location right there. And if you divide up, this in thirds this way, this is that little whatever space up there, on the whatever horizontal and vertical. So I thought that would look okay too. But anyways, with that cacti down there, I didn't want to just completely obscure that whole shape down there. I mean, you can kind of apply this and then kind of remove some of it after you apply it, but I thought, it might look kind of murky in terms of a nice crisp image if I put the white right over it. I'm putting some of it over the top branches, but I thought that wouldn't be quite as bad. Okay, so if I thought about doing this, that being said, if I thought about the, this is going to be like a moon in here, I would have probably done this first and then just stamped right over it. But, on that Friday night live, we were just doing stamp sketches, so I wanted to get, most of, if not all, of the elements already stamped out just ahead of time. Okay, so that's what that looks like right there. Do you see how I'm kind of transitioning this moon right here? I think it looks a little bit more interesting sometimes when you don't do the moons like completely even. If you're doing this type of edition here, I mean, you can do it with suns or something like that too, but I always kind of make them a little bit more transition than a whole thing. I mean, sometimes I do a whole thing, but I started to do that more often. I thought it looked more interesting and, I don't know, potentially more realistic too. Okay, so these little areas in here, I'm gonna kind of re-establish that little bit because this is really easy to do just with a black colored pencil right here. They're just lines right there that I just kind of went over. So we've kind of reclaimed some of that darker value that disappeared with the addition of the white pigment ink right over the top of it. Okay, like that. All right, so let's see. Let's start applying some shadows in here and try to figure out where they're going to go. Happy Easter, Kay. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in here. Just a real quick application here. All right, so we have that moon right there. So roughly, we already have some shadows that are just inherently under, or just incorporated into the design right here. But this is going to be roughly the angles for the shadows, okay? So for something like this character right here, my angle for the shadow is going to be going off that way, okay? We start getting a lot more horizontal. See this cactus right here? Right there is going to be the shadow. You don't have to bring in rulers or anything like that. And I usually just do it. It's like, well, where on the shadow, you know? Is it right up here? Is that the angle? Is this the angle? I usually just go towards the center like this, okay? I'm looking at it for this saguaro right here, okay? So I just kind of, I do a very light application at first like that. Okay, so it's kind of like this right here. I make it a little bit darker, you know, where that, you know, cactus is like that. And then you kind of just transition it off into a lighter value like that, okay? So you transition that shadow out that way. So see that shadow right there? All right, we'll do it for this horseback rider. All right, so see those shadows starting to come into play, these elongated shadows like that. This one right here. Some of these, you know, some of these objects you're not going to be able to see, you know, very much of a shadow if there's something kind of obscuring it in front of it. But like this one right here will play a big part in the drama of the piece. So let's see. Now this is supposed to be kind of grass, so, you know, you can kind of do your shadows if this is the, you know, these are two cacti right here instead of just, and this is the moon right here. You don't have to go like straight like that, you know, if there's like cactus right here. And if this earth area is supposed to be kind of, you know, varied in terms of shape, you can kind of shape your shadows like that. You can see this is kind of like arced a little bit. Arced. That's saying that the ground is kind of sloped like that, okay? So maybe I'll try that. I'll try, you know, arcing it a little bit like that, and we'll continue the shadow out that way. They don't have to be like, you know, like super accurate or anything like that. You know what? Them generally accurate, and it'll read just fine. So see these shadows like that coming into play. I'm really doing this because the fence posts right here are going to be the things that are, you know, kind of really setting the, I don't know, whatever the mood, tone, the lighting mood of the piece. Okay, let's see, saguaros like that, or not saguaros, but ocotillo. There's so many little branches like this. I just kind of do a little quick arcs like that. I don't try to match it up with each individual one because they're also kind of squiggly, you know, so their shadows are kind of going all over the place in reality. So I'm just kind of doing this type of thing like that, okay? All right, let's see. All right, the fence posts right here. So each one of these fence posts are going to be at a slightly different angle, right, from each other. So it's going to be something like this. See how that flare is coming out like that in terms of the angle. Now this area down here is probably going to be reasonably flat because this was like a old road or something like that. So let's take a look right here. Just kind of do a really light version of it, like a, I don't know, 20% gray, you know, with this black pencil. In this case, going out like this. Do this. I do it really lightly, just in case I look at it and it's like, oh, I got the angles all wrong. Then it's just like a really light version of it. And then you don't have to erase it or anything like that. You just kind of get the angle kind of corrected in your, I don't know, whatever edited marks. Okay, let's see. That one's roughly like this. Now we do have these other rungs in there that would be casting the shadow, and I'm not really absolutely sure where I want those cross beams to go in there. Now see this one right here, that one really ends right there, so there's just this little area right down here, but it's obscured by the reeds right here, okay? But you can add it in there if you want to. Okay, I think those look roughly pretty good, like that. See how they're kind of like flaring out a little bit? Kind of make it a little bit darker right next to the post, but look at that lighting in there now. Isn't that fun? And if you want it a little bit more dramatic, then you just kind of, you kind of darken it a little bit more like that. And see this darker shading right in here, this element right in here, it can make, when you're adding these shadows in here, sometimes it makes the areas around it lighter in terms of contrast, okay? So we're not physically making this lighter. We can add in some white around in here or something like that, but just the very addition of this on there kind of is really helping with the lighting, the light and shade. It's not really doing anything because it's the same color as it was before, but it just looks like these areas in between these shadows, I think, looks lighter by contrast. Okay, so let's see these posts over here. These posts over here are just going like this. So they're all kind of like combining, like into one shadow. Let me see. Let me get this one correct here. Yeah, these ones are just like running right across each other. I mean, it just happened to be that way because the, that moon placement. Let's go like that. Now, I'm not doing these ones too dark because I don't want to obscure kind of that, the posts negative space right in there. What I'm talking about is the negative space is that area like right in here. Okay. So I'll just do a like more of a like a quick little or a short little almost like a check mark like that for those shadows. Okay. All right, so see this cactus right here. Let's make that one a little bit more dramatic. See, I just kind of do it really lightly at first, then you can always kind of add more. It's like adding salt to food, right? You can always add more, but kind of hard to take it out of there. So if I did a really hard edition of this, I mean, you can erase it a little bit, but who wants to do that? So just kind of add a little bit at a time. I didn't do anything for this Ocotillo right here. See, if I do this shadow right over here, right in here, it's going to obscure the shape of this fence right here, okay? So you don't have to do everything. I mean, you're making your kind of artistic kind of judgments on a piece. See, if this thing was, casting a shadow right in here, then I'm really losing kind of the shade, the light and shade throughout this area. So let's just leave this, the shadow from this one just alone, not do anything. Okay, and that's kind of the same thing with this one right here. I didn't do these, I did a couple little check marks in there, but I thought, we're losing kind of the shape of the fence in there. All right. So that's another reason you can just do a bunch of like really kind of light in value ones, and you can see if you like it, then you can always go more. All right. So that being said, let me see. Let's add that. Let me see if I can add like this little rung here. Okay, so this bottom rung right here, these are really elongated shadows too, so it's not going to be like the distance between this and this, the bottom of the post, and this isn't going to be the same as, the distance between here and that shadow. So I'm just going to make it up, and I'll put it like roughly like right here. It's really super elongated dramatic shadows. So it's going like this right here. And I'm just going to make it really kind of light. So it's like that right there. It's barely kind of visible right in here. Okay. And then you can make the distance between this one and this one a lot longer. You can do something like this. I don't know. The shadow's really kind of dissipating though. So, but you can kind of give a, kind of an idea of it. You're very obscured like that. All right, so, but I think that is it. I don't know if white would look good in here. We have this kind of white from the moonlight on the terrain, but I think I'll just leave it like that. Hello, Craft by Cat. Good to see you. We're here. What time is it there for you, Craft by Cat? All right. Let's see. Oh, okay. So here, I was thinking there was something else that I was going to do on here. Okay, so we don't see the horizon line of this. It's not really a horizon. Well, I guess it's a horizon line, but it's really the edge of the slope here. I wanted to create, now in theory, I'd leave this area on the slope lighter, okay, because it's like the moonlight is shining on that area, but I want to create a little bit more of a separation between this ridge, okay, and the sky. Now you could leave it as is too, it's like you can't really tell where the sky ends and the earth begins, kind of a poetic type of kind of notion. But as far as like a structural kind of thing right here, I am going to create a little bit more separation right here between. Hello, Sharita. How are you? How's Sharita's lab going? What have you been experimenting with? All right, see that right there? A little bit of a slope like that. It gives the piece a little bit more structure, or maybe a lot more structure in terms of the land. Like that. Let's shade in some of this, some of the sedge filler texturing in here. So see these textures right in there. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of darkening them in a little bit. Not super dark, but just I can see them here and there throughout the piece. They don't show up too much against this textured paper that I stamped on. But I just add a little bit. I'm talking about like a 5% gray like that to these areas, and it just gives the terrain a little bit more kind of personality. It's a little bit more definitive that way. All right, but that is that. Let me test something out here. I think I've tried this before with the white pencil. I was thinking, I'm not sure if I like that as much as just kind of leaving it as, but let's bring it into there. Okay. Okay, so I'm bringing in some of this. This is a white pastel pencil, and it really applies very nicely on top of this type of paper. It's It's a pretty soft pastel on here. It's not like super powdery and anything like that, but let's bring a little bit of that lighting, I guess, into the scene like that. It's not too bad. It kind of gives us some sort of reflective light coming from our light source, okay, that relates to it. But I don't want to do it in, you know, a really super light version. So let's just do it let's do a really minimal kind of application of it. And also, too, I mean, I'm using the wood grain paper for a reason. I mean, we could just have it up there in the sky, but I like the wood grain down here. So I don't want to just like absolutely cover it up with, you know, all of my media, you know. Um, I want it to read throughout the piece here. So well, let me try this though. Okay, so I'm thinking about putting some little highlights on maybe some of these fence posts. I'm trying to think if I should do that in the pastel pencil or if I should do it with a white paint pen. Let me try it with the pastel pencil. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's going to read. It's kind of a thick application of it. Let's do it with the white acrylic paint pen. I'll keep it real minimal though. I'm trying to think if this white here is bright enough to have such a distinct white application of this. It's the lab, so we're going to test it out. Okay, let's see. I think that's going to work. So this is the 0.7 millimeter, but I can kind of, if I do a very light application where I'm barely touching the thing and I kind of do a little quick swipe, it gives me, I'm guessing, you know, a 0.4, you know, application of this paint, you know. I'm talking about millimeters here. Yeah, I think okay, that's working. It's you know, I didn't want a real bold application of this white in there. I don't know if you can you guys see that? There's the camera picking that up at all. You can see that little tinge of white right there on the fence posts. It's super subtle because you know I'm trying not to add too much of it. Almost like I'm almost kind of like scratching it onto that, you know, the top of these rungs or whatever. Okay, let me try to get a little bit on the posts. I'll put it on the side of the post, kind of facing the light source, the moon. Unless it's the sun. Well, it's moonlight, so it's a moon. All right, let me see right in here. All right, now if I did this in like a yellow pigmenting pad instead, then instead of using this, you go into, you have the reflected light, you know, like a yellow or something like that on your reflected light. Okay, you don't really give a white reflected light to a yellow light source, you know, usually. Yeah, I don't want to go overboard with this, but I think this is looking pretty decent on here. I'll put a couple on the larger saguaro right there, although it's kind of distant too. But if you're watching this like on like on your phone, I don't know if that's picking up those little details like that, but I think that worked out pretty good. I'll put a couple on my reeds here, little dots here and there, like so. All right. Let me take a look at this shadow right here. Let's make this a little bit more. Let's bring this out a little bit more. I think I'm getting a little bit bolder now that I've added in the highlights, I think. Okay, maybe we can go a little bit more bold on the shadows then. Like that. Yeah, nothing too kind of crazy, but... All right, but that's your lighting right there. I don't know. I don't know. Can you guys see those little white marks in there? Pan pastels. Pan pastels can be really, really dramatic. Those are some of my favorite pieces that people are doing on scenes or with the pan pastels these days, or not the over the past maybe I don't know how long has it been? Maybe it's been 2 years at this point in time. Um, but just amazing pieces. Good thing about pastels. It's one of those mediums in stamping. For the long time, stamping was dye-based inks, um, alcohol inks, pigment inks, and I don't know. People use colored pencils, but for the most part, these types of mediums, they're different degrees of transparent. Okay, so alcohol inks, solvent inks, dye-based inks, they're all transparent. Okay, so you couldn't really put light on top of something darker like that. I mean, this pigment ink right here is white on top of this background, but if you layer a bunch of pigment ink on top of one another, they're not like super opaque. All right, but that's why I like using paint pens, is because we can put opacity or something light over something dark. Okay, but that's something with pastels. You can really do that. You know, you can build up your tones, not just going darker and darker and darker. You know, because if you put a transparent yellow over something that's blue, you know, it's going to look green because the blue is showing right through the yellow. But if you put a yellow pastel over, you know, a dark red or something like that, you know, what you see is the lighter tones. So opacity with the pan pastels is really it's a nice feature. Now they're not transparent, so you don't get this super deep sense of space in terms of overlapping layers, but you know, just the ability to go light over dark is that's really dynamic in terms of building up kind of volumes. Okay, it's really nice. So I haven't played around with them. I really should, but God, I have so many gazillion different things I still need to play around with what I have. So I don't know. I don't know. That's that. You know, should that you know that doesn't stop stampers though, right? You know, it's like we have so much stuff. You know. Hello, Vintage Scrap Girl. How are you? Thanks for the order, Christine. Hope we getting that out tomorrow. Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm glad you guys can see that. So those little touches of highlights on here, I don't know. It kind of adds to that. I don't know. I guess kind of separation of objects and space in here. So if you just joined in, what we did here was we just added in this moon right in here. Okay, this light source could be you know, whatever you want, and to the setting in here with all, you know, the fences and the you know, the desert flora in there. I think it works really well. It works really well with anything. But this desert floor is kind of nice because I have things kind of, there's a lot of space in between objects when you use this desert flora, because it's narrower on the bottom and wider on top. So these saguaros like that, you know, Joshua trees, whatever it is, you know, you got that trunk down below. Yeah, I'm talking about you know, in contrast to something like pine trees, but see, everything kind of flares out like that, you know. And so this area at the bases of these objects, there's you know, a perfect opportunity for like shadows down here. Okay, now if we had this like pine tree that's flaring out like this, and this one's going like this, I mean, there's less floor space down here for shading. Now I do add shadow work a lot on that, but the desert types of terrain, it'd be a perfect opportunity for kind of dramatic lighting. So instead of having like a light source like up here, which you can do if you kind of have it a little bit lower, then it kind of gives you that excuse for adding in these elongated shadows. And of course that, in a desert type of environment can be really fun and dramatic. So more dramatic, I guess we can always add in dramatic lighting into pieces, but kind of the opportunity for dramatic shadows can be really fun. I mean, for me, if I looked at this piece right here, if I didn't do it, okay, if someone else did it, or if this was like a photograph, I'd be looking at those shadows. The shadows would be one of those. It's like a character in a piece like that. When you do this type of thing, when you have these types of additions into a scene. So I don't know. It's really fun to do too. And okay, if you just joined in, if you haven't seen me do this before, you just kind of, all of your shadows, you're just kind of angled towards whatever area the light source is shining from. So your shadows over here, like that cactus right there. There's the angle right there. So that's just the simple way that I do it, okay? I mean, there's other things that are a little bit more technical that we probably learned in perspective in college, but I don't remember it. It's too complicated, It's like if you're doing a bunch of buildings and stuff, then that shadow should really go a certain distance or something. I don't remember any of that, So I just do this simple little formula like this, and I don't know, it works fine for me with scenes. Anyway, it's at night there. Yeah. AM or PM, I can only tell the 20. Yeah, well, you're probably, it's, Crap Like Cat isn't in the US. Oh, you ordered some wood grain paper. That's awesome. Wait, it's not arriving today, is it? Are they delivering today? I hope you like that wood grain paper, Christine. It's so much fun. It makes for some really quick scenes, too. All right, so anyways, that's just my quick little video today. Are Conte and Paris White Pastel? I would think so. Yeah. Try out the Conte. So this pencil right here is a little bit softer than a Conte crayon. Conte crayon's a little bit more. It's a little denser. I don't know if I ever used a white Conte. We always used the sepia, or I don't know, whatever color that one is, that rust color one, and black. Yeah, I probably used white in the past. No, I did use white. There was always 3 colors of Conte when I was a student, and we used those ones all the time. I don't know, there must have been white in there somewhere. I always seem to remember using black in that kind of, I don't know, whatever rusty clay looking one a lot more often. But yeah, try it out. So the Conte crayon, everyone know what Conte crayons are? They're like, I don't know if there's different versions of them, but they're like these little sticks. And what are they? They're kind of the consistency of, or hardness of like I don't know, maybe like a colored pencil. I think a little bit denser, at least than my Prismacolors. But yeah, those would be good. So that rusty kind of colored Conte would be good on here too, because it's like it can be almost the same color as like that right there. So I did my shadows in black, but you can do your shadows too. Speaking of Conte crayons, in colors, okay, or you can do it in multiple tones, like if you want to make your shadows richer, okay, then you do kind of some colors out of the color scheme of your piece or your light source, okay? So here's like a sepia colored pencil. And if you add that to those shadow areas, you can give a warm shadow, you know what I mean? Now, if I'm doing a moonlight scene and it's like all blue or something like that in cool colors, I probably wouldn't bring in, unless the moon was a warm tone. You can give kind of temperature schemes to your shadow areas. You know what I mean? If you really want things to look really super rich, you can do something like that. Now on this one, I can't really see too much of a difference because I went in there really dark with my piece, but you know what I mean? Play around with it. Speaking of that, but here's like a burnt ochre, okay? So you can add a little of that in there, like so. It makes, it makes for a richer type of, I don't know, kind of applications and subtleties. I don't know if you can tell there, but that shadow there is a little bit warmer now. It kind of changes the spirit of it a little bit. Not by like, it doesn't change it to the opposite or something like that, but you're just giving it a little bit more richness and character. It kind of changes um, the hue, I guess, scheme of the piece. It's a little bit, it's a little bit of a slightly warmer shadow. Okay, and I'm just doing it because this color right here is kind of the similar color as like that tone right there. So you can do it in a very definitive area in terms of your shadows. I'm talking about the application of tone. Now I don't really notice too much. If I was just to look at this, I wouldn't notice it even for myself. But if I look closer, you might be hitting people kind of on it. When you do something like that, it might be a kind of something that's more on a very subtle level, okay? But I tend to think that, not to get too corny here, but I do tend to think that those little types of things like that can hit people on more of a subconscious level. There's just more warmth in the scene just in general, and it might hit people on slightly more of an emotional level. I don't know. So play around with that. Yeah, build things up. So that's one of my things. Okay, so one of my things that my instructor said, and I've mentioned this in a previous video before, but he said I think he said some of the brighter tones are in the shadow areas, when you're doing a painting or something like that. And his point was is that light sources, if things are getting hit with a strong light source, the colors, the intensity and brightness of colors tends to get washed out. I mean, he was talking about mostly with the sun, like in a high noon type of situation. And then the shadow areas, where those colors aren't getting just bleached out, you know what I mean? From a visible standpoint, you make those shadow areas brighter. So if this is a grassy terrain, all in here, then your shadows would be a brighter green than the areas that are exposed to that bright sunlight. So that's one of those little things too. And you can also bring like changes of temperature into your shadow areas too. It doesn't have to always be black, you know what I mean? A lot of times when people think of shadow areas, they think of black, but it's just usually a darker version of whatever color, those shadows are being created on. So on something like this, we have these different shades of red in this area right here, those shadow areas in between those little textures on my cap right here. It's not black in there, okay? It's just darker red, and then there's lighter reds in here. But the richer red is this deeper color right here, rather than like, this is plastic, so this is like an extreme case, but so you just play your, play your color schemes in here. Now on this paper right here, we already have these kind of light and shadows in here that are inherent in this paper, which makes it a lot easier because everything's kind of already established. I got this grain of wood, darker wood running through there. So it just kind of ends up being the shadow area on my terrain because, this kind of darker area right down here just establishes shadows. But you can kind of play around with those same tones by just picking out your, colored pencils or whatever, or pastels, and just playing with those types of color schemes that are already inherent on the paper. And that goes for any paper that you're using. There's the vintage papers too, and these things like the wood grain and the vintage papers are really fun because, it You can add color to them, certainly. You know, I add greens sometimes to my wood grain paper because it's not so established. There's not hard contrast in this wood grain paper, so you can add color to it. But, you know, I think it looks pretty good just as is. So I just keep kind of minimal applications of tone. So you can play around. You can put all your concentration on things like shadows if you want to, or just minor little, you know, kind of tweaks in lighting or something like that. And I think the pieces are like done like really fast, you know. So after I do like some scenes like this, vintage papers and things, you know, then I tend to want to do, you know, something with like super saturated tones or something like that, like Northern Lights or something like that. Then I do a few of these and I think, I just want to go back to, you know, some kind of minimal applications, you know, starting off with photographs or pre-printed papers or something like that, just for some, I don't know, swings and, you know, kind of application processes here. What was your intent in using the wood grain to mimic sand? Oh, was it not? I mean, you know, so Christine, I mean, yeah, it kind of is already established in here. So right down in this terrain down here, it wasn't necessarily to mimic sand because, you know, this is right in here. I kind of stamped that grassy terrain, so it's a little bit more grassy up here. But just whatever shows through, shows through. If I was doing, you know, like some Arctic type of thing, you know, I could stamp it on top of this wood grain paper as well, you know, just where it's like all snowy or something like that. But where that does come into play, though, the only thing that I don't limit myself to this, but the only thing on something like this that I would think about when it comes to the wood grain paper, you can stamp this wood grain paper kind of horizontally where the texturing is kind of more horizontal, or you can stamp it vertical like that, okay? And it takes on a little bit of a different spirit when you have that kind of vertical kind of texturing in the background, you know. I mean, you can imagine something like that. But that in there, that does look like sky to me, and this texturing down here, with whatever you stamp over the top of it, it does end up looking like, I don't know, these striations in the surface right there. I tend to think that something like this looks great for water as well. You know, if you're just doing kind of some minimalist type of thing. You can imagine some lake right in here that looks like colors of this, you know, textures and patterns of the sky that are repeated and mirrored down here in the water. So I do think about that once in a while, but not really, you know. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not looking through, you know, you can get 8 different areas on an 11 by 17 piece of this disposable placemat paper, right? 8, right? Yeah. I mean, I might look around a little bit, you know. I was doing that a little bit more when I first got it, but now I'm just kind of grabbing it. It's like, oh, here's a quarter page that I have here or something like that, and I just use it. But you know, I do think about it a little bit in terms of do I want my vertical things like that sometimes, like if I'm stamping a lake in here or something like that, and I want a mirrored kind of version, you know, of what's going on in the background, both in the sky and in the water, kind of in this more, you know, kind of almost northern lighty looking, you know, type of texturing, then I do think about that a little bit. But I think the papers that I do think about it a little bit more are the vintage papers, because some of these vintage papers have like this hard. This comes from an 8.5 by 11, so I get 4 pieces out of an 8.5 by 11, you know, because I'm hardly ever stamping 8.5 by 11. But sometimes on this vintage papers, it has a really strong. There's different. There's multi packs. Some, you know, a lot of them have like a hard vignette in the 4 corners. Okay, so there's like a really dark area when you cut it down into quarter size pieces. So you are working around kind of this hard, contrasting dark corner on that type of paper like that. But the wood grain paper, it's a little bit less so. So all you're really thinking about is horizontal and vertical for me, you know, for the most part. And yeah, like I said, these scenes come together so fast because you already have this kind of established background on there that, yeah, I don't really spend a lot of time pondering, kind of the textural pattern in the background too much, beyond horizontal and vertical like that. Okay, you're looking at Conte pastel pens. Oh, Conte pastel pencils. Are you talking about like where the pencils are in? They're in wooden, what a housing or something like that. Candy. They didn't have Conte pastel pencils back when I was like in school. It was always the sticks. I'm trying to think of would we benefit from kind of a narrower delivery of that medium in pencil form, or would it be better in stick form? Sometimes I want things a little bit more in stick forms, I guess it would depend on the you know the hardness of those of that media. I'm trying to think. So the Conte pastel pencils. Is the Conte pastel pencils? Is that a different medium than the Conte crayons? Because I'm thinking of, okay, so if it's Conte pastels, is that a different thing than Conte crayons, but just in different colors? I don't know. So okay, so Candy, do you already have colored pencils? If you already have colored pencils that you like, and the Conte pastel pencils are really similar to um, colored pencils that you already have, then you might want to get a different version just for variation. If you use and like an existing set of colored pencils that you already have, you might want to go with like a Conte crayon set or something like that. If that was one of the things you were thinking about. Happy Easter, Patty. Huh. Kevin's Conte pencil. Oh, wait, Candy. Oh, okay, Candy, are you thinking about this one right here? Like pencils like this? This isn't Conte right here. This is a Stabilo Carbothello pencil. But if these ones right here come in like a set of different colors, that would be pretty cool. I would look into, personally, if I had like a set of these like that, I would get more of I would imagine like a set of something like this might come with 2 white and 2 black too. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's just like in the acrylic paint pens, when you get like a set of these types of things, it comes with like 2 white and 2 black because they figured that people are going to be using those ones the most. So yeah. But yeah, if you're getting like different types of media, just make sure that if you like the ones that you already have, things that you already have, I would get the different types of media that would be a little bit different from one another. So the Carbothellos, if those come in multiple colors and in a multicolored pack or something like that, that would be a worthwhile type of thing, I would think. Because I don't know, unless you have a bunch of pastel pencils already or something like that. That would be pretty beneficial. I think if I had a set like that, I think I would probably use it. But it would have to be. I dropped something somewhere. It would have to be something that would be different enough from the colored pencils. So I'm trying to think if the thing about the colored pencils too, if I'm using the colored pencils for certain types of application, like the colored pencils work really well on this surface like this, but they don't need to be sealed. The pastel pencils do. Okay, so if they were really similar in terms of the end result, and I didn't have to seal one, but I have to seal the other, I would probably just be using the colored pencils. But I don't know, there have been, I have been using this white carbothello a lot on different things, and it works really fantastic. I don't know. And if you ever, are curious about it too, you can just get the white one and then see if you like it. And if you really like using it and it brings a lot of value to you, then, you can get like a set or something like that, because it's good to have like, extra white ones anyways, to use. But yeah, so I don't know how much like a set of these ones are, but I would imagine the Carbothellos, these art medium ones that are, I don't know, it might be $2 or $3 per, you know, unit or something like that, for all I know. I have no idea, but yeah, you can test like a white one out first or something like that. I think that's like one of the most useful ones, I would think, because that's like just like the case of the acrylic white paint pen. I use this one over my colored ones probably. I don't know. The next one would be probably like another light tone or something like warm color or something like that, or a blue. But over the rest of, these pens right here, I don't know, I'd be using the white like 20 to 1 or something like that. So, anyways, yeah, test out, or something like that. All right, folks. Thanks for joining in here. Dramatic lighting, it's fun to do. Play around with it. Let me know how it goes. It's certainly a way to, it really extends kind of the look of, it can extend the look of almost every single, stamp you have out there in terms of landscape stamping, when you add that kind of element of light. I don't do that over everything, but it can really change the spirit of a piece just by adding that down there. To me, this looks like a different, fence now with a shadow in here. But just by doing something like simple like that, like I said, you really kind of expand the whole kind of whatever emotional, dramatic quality of of an image, just by adding those types of things in there. So it's a really fun thing to do too, to look at it. And it's just, I don't know, like I said, it's one of the funnest things to do, is just adding in those little shadows. You don't have to do it on every single object or anything like that. But I don't know, it's fun to do that and play around. So just remember to just kind of, my little secret here, if you took any type of thing from it, well, and maybe a couple things. So it's the angle, and you just kind of aim it towards the center of whatever light source you have. It doesn't have to be a light source in a scene. You can have like something out of the scene that, there's no official like thing in here, but, say the sun is out here, but just keep your piece kind of situated so you can kind of figure out those angles. So if the sun was out here, or a moon or whatever, then just keep this steady so you can get those angles down, whatever, in the correct angle. And then here's the thing. The second thing is just do that thing where you just add a very light version of it, okay? With whatever you're doing. It could be a 5% version of whatever color you're adding. And then just, take a look at it overall, you know what I mean? And see how it looks just with those really light shade ones. And then if you like it, then you just kind of, you establish it a little bit more, and then you kind of taper it so, shadows are darker towards the, the source of it. So I don't know okay, I don't have enough lighting in my studio here. I was going to see if I can kind of create a little bit of a shadow right here. But you can see it's, even so, it's a little bit darker right here by my fingers. And then, I don't know where that shadow ends right here. It's probably like right here. But see this right here? The shadow area right here is a lot darker than this right here, right? So that's what you do. You just kind of do it like that. And vary them like that, okay? And that's what's happening kind of like right in here, like so. All right? So just you know, just keep it easy. That I think that's an easy way to do it. You know, it doesn't have to be like formulated. You know, you just kind of let it kind of develop slowly at any given time. So that's what I do, and that's what makes it really easy for me to kind of see if I like. You know what I mean? If I get what I'm kind of going for, I just do it in a very light version of, in this case, you know, whatever, black ink, or not black ink, but black colored pencil. Do you have to spray pastel pencils? Usually, Candy, you do. Um, like this, if I added like a lot of this down, no, I didn't add very much of it down here. It's like really minimal. Like right here, there's a, you can spray that or not. Um, I mean, if I went like this and I just kind of wiped on there, that probably would come off. But I don't know, we're not sending these cards out to people and they're doing this, over our cards. But if you build up enough with pastels, yeah, they're prone to, whatever removal of medium or with touch. But let's say if you're doing pastel pencils or something like that, it depends how thick or pastel, like she already got her pan pastels. If you're building up things with those pan pastels, you really need to spray fix them. Unless it's a really minimal application of it, like one layer. But if you're doing 2, 3, 4 layers of pastels, with that, you should probably spray seal it. But I don't know. I mean, if you're putting these into those, I don't know if I have one of those clear envelopes around here. Yeah, like one of these like clear envelopes or something like that. I mean, you might be able to get away with not spray sealing, if you put it into an envelope like that, and then if you mail that off to someone, if people keep, I don't know, whenever I get like cards that are in like something like this, unless it's a folded card where I got to open it up to read it or something like that, I just keep it in the, these envelopes right here, and that might provide enough protection, to not have to spray seal it. But again, it depends on the amount of layering on there. Like you guys know Deanna from the Facebook group. Deanna's in the chat sometimes here, but she's been doing a lot with pan pastels. I don't know if I have any of her papers here. Her pre-printed papers. Yeah. So like on her pre-printed papers, okay, like these types of things, I accidentally got some ink on there, but these are all pan pastels right here. And then she splatter painted like some ink in here, but see, that's going to be like white over the tops of the, there's blues in here. Then she's put that blue, like lighter blues over the top of the darker ones like that. Okay, that white is on top of that blue down there. Okay. And then she's built up a lot of tones right here in the moon. I've used a lot of these already, but see, that's going to be like a ton of white pastel built up right there. Okay. These are prints, she sells these pre-printed backgrounds like this. But these would be very subject to, removal. Like if this wasn't spray sealed, if I ran my finger across there, there's got, that white is going to be dragged out in this area down here. So she might even be doing things where, like, she gets this background in here, spray seals it, okay, and then she did this over the top of this background. I don't know what her process is, but a lot of times with spray fixatives and things like that, you do things in layers. So you get this going in the background. You want to get that firmly established, and you spray seal it. Then on top of that, she might be adding in this extra moon in there, and then extra white on top of that, and then spray sealing that. Might be 2 or 3 times where you spray seal it, and with something like this. I don't know. Yeah, there's all kinds of different tones in there. So see that white right there? That was built up over the top of all of this. She might have left a little bit of an area in here that was white, just the white of the page. But see like that in there? That's that opacity that I'm talking about, being able to put that. See, that probably looked like this right in here, but then she used that yellow right over the top of it, and then there's a little bit of white right in there. I'm talking about right there. And that's how you get that kind of diffusion going up there. with that area. See, that's yellow on top of that dark right there. So that's really built up like powdery pigment in there that's just suspended right on. It's basically floating on the surface of this paper. And then you really got to lock that type of thing down on there. But isn't that really fantastic? So that's one of those things you can do with pastels is you can bring in the opacity, or that's like a translucent layer because it's a very light layer of that lighter yellow right over the top of that right there. And it'll read, where you can't do that with like transparent. You can't put like a yellow, you know, dye-based ink over the top of that. It's not going to look like it's yellow, because these are transparent. So the colors underneath are always going to show through. So yeah, so Krylon spray fixative, or, there's different art fixatives. There's specific pastel fixatives out there. I just use the Krylon. It's probably the cheapest one, rather than like Winsor Newton or something like that, or Grumbuck. I don't know, whoever makes those types of things. Anyway, yeah. So looking forward to seeing if you guys end up getting those different types of things like that. That would be really cool to see some of your experiments like that. So yeah. So when you get back in that lab, Sharita, yeah, maybe post some of those things or email them on over. I'm curious to see what you come up with like that. So yeah, a lot of layering possibilities with those pastels. Yeah, it's a whole different whatever animal there in terms of color sequencing. You go light to dark, go back to light again, medium tones, it's texturing, all kinds of stuff like that. And remember, you can use all kinds of found objects with things like pastels too. You can swirl things around with a cotton ball. You can use your fingers, and kind of dab things around and move it around on that surface. It could be really a fun kind of a kinesthetic type of experience using that type of thing, because it's malleable. You know what I mean? We lay down things like this. We can't like erase a cactus type of thing. After we stamp it out on this paper right here. But if you apply pastels or something like that, if you don't like what you want or what you got, you can just completely switch it up. It's just that's the fun thing about that type of thing. It's real malleable. So, you can go really back and forth, or you can do complete removals of what you apply down there too. I don't know what paper people are using with pan pastels, but I would imagine it's some sort of matte, if not a like pastel paper. I'm not sure, where it has a little bit more tooth to it. Yeah. Anyway, all right, folks, happy Easter. Just a real, it was generally a quick application of some lighting on this. Drop me a note if you have any questions on lighting, if if you ever kind of struggle with any type of concept or type of thing that's really in any of the videos, drop me a note and we'll work you through it. But yeah, play around with those elongated shadows. I need to do that more with these with its desert imagery, especially. It just, I don't know, it tends to look I tend to associate that, I don't know, for some reason with this desert type of system right here. I think we just had an earthquake or something here. There's a big bump. Okay, so on my next video, when I get around to it, I think I'm going to do these pieces right here. And we're going to use some alcohol inks on this one. And I think I'm going to add in, we'll go back to this white pigment ink. I really want to add in some light beams coming through here on this photo stamping right here. Like that, maybe. Across there, and we'll try to incorporate in some alcohol inks onto this photo paper. I really like doing that on something like this desert little tortoise right here. I'm going to warm up and bring in some spring types of blossoms into this desert floor right in here, and we'll see how that goes. I haven't done that in a while, so go easy on me. So yeah, we'll bring in some alcohol ink colors into that into these scenes and try to add in some. I don't know if it'll be dramatic lighting, but I don't know, some more rich types of lighting and texturing in these too, I think. All right, folks, happy Easter. Thanks for joining in. Hope to see you on the next live or whatnot.